right, I call this meeting to order at 6:31 PM. Grace, will you please take roll?
Alderperson Chandik Kuniger.
Here.
Alderperson Definite Ledvina.
Here.
Alderperson Rosh.
Here.
Randy Soki.
Here.
Ryan Jennings.
Here.
Melissa Thiel Collar.
Here.
Jim Kneisel.
Here.
Connor Mason.
Here.
And Connor Goodman is excused.
Thank you, Grace. Public comment upon matters not on the agenda. Comments made during the public comment period shall pertain only to matters under the jurisdiction of the Board of Park Commissioners. So is there anyone who wishes to address the Park Board on matters not on the agenda? Please step forward. State your name and address, please, sir, for the record.
I'm Joe Nix, 227 Bell Avenue. It's nice to have more people here. No one comes out as often for my agenda items. I'm here today with an invitation. As you know from my prior appearances, I have quite an affection for the Gettysburg Address plaque and the Gettysburg Address. In this year, this fall, will be the 160th anniversary of the Gettysburg Address. And I'm working with the DPR Historical Society to hold a small event, maybe not too small, at Wilson Park to commemorate the 160th anniversary of Lincoln's speech. And I'm hoping that some or all of you can come and attend it. There's probably going to be a little bit more involved in the Gettysburg Address itself because the program will be McKim Hughes from the Historical Society and Union Hotel is going to talk about the history of the park, the school, James Hughes, how the Gettysburg Address plaque got there. Jim Hughes, who is the grandson of James Hughes, who we've talked about, is going to come up and talk about his grandfather. And then thinking about the Gettysburg Address and 1863 got some of us to thinking about the Civil War and what happened in De Pere during that time period. And it turns out that even though we had a very small city at that time, we sent approximately 97 men and boys to the Civil War. Many of them who were died and were wounded in battle. As far as I can tell, De Pere has really not done anything to commemorate all of that. So as part of this event, we're also going to commemorate the Civil War history of De Pere. And I've arranged for the forensic team at West De Pere High School to come and read off all of the names of the Civil War veterans from De Pere. And finally, we're going to finish the program with a talk by Mayor Boyd, who I've asked to come and talk about the future of Wilson Park. I don't know what he's going to say, but I think it will be interesting no matter what. Please come, hoping for a nice day. While I'm up here, I know there's an agenda item later on concerning noise at the VFW pool. Want me to wait?
Yes, please.
I will wait for that.
Thank you, Joe.
What day was the event?
Yes, October 8th, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The Packers play Monday night in Las Vegas. St. Norbert College plays the Saturday, the day before, no conflict there. Definitely De Pere, their event is also on Saturday. As far as I know, there's nothing else to do on that Sunday. Please come. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Any other member of the public wishing to address the board on an item not on the agenda? Last call for any public comment. Seeing none, we'll move on to action items. By the way, Dean, I don't always look up at the screen, so please feel free to verbally get my attention if I don't notice your hand raised, okay?
No worries, because you know I'm very verbal.
So true. All right, action item number 1, consideration and possible action to approve the Board of Park Commissioners minutes from the August 17th, 2023 meeting.
Move to approve. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
The motion carries. Action item number 2, approval of donation from Associated Bank for the Nelson Family Pavilion.
I'll move to approve. Second.
Any
Second.
discussion? Thank you. Any discussion around the donation from Associated Bank for the Nelson Family Pavilion?
Randy, just so that everyone does understand and read the material, there is the contingency, there's actually two contingencies. It's a payment over a 5-year plan and the contingency that we would not award a naming rights donation to another financial institution. So, and I kind of explained some of the background of that in there as well.
Are they receiving any naming
No,
rights for that donation?
just on the donor plaque, they'd be listed in the appropriate level.
And just to give more context to that, in healthcare, in banking, that's pretty typical guidelines around
Yeah.
some of it. So it's pretty standard.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Next on the agenda, discussion items. Item number 1, discussion and review of petition submitted by Michael Kostrewa regarding music levels at VFW Pool. Marty, do you want to give us a little background on this item?
Yeah, I can give you just a quick snapshot, and then I would obviously recommend opening it to anyone that is here. On the weekend, August 12th, 13th, we received a complaint about noise from VFW, and it was directly related to music. A series of events that happened with police being contacted. We were notified about it right away on Monday. We talked internally, and we took some actions to make sure that it would not be a long-term problem and give us some time to really look at what was going on. So we instructed staff to turn music down throughout the rest of the week, which there was only 1 week left, and then turn it off completely during the evening shift. We were able to meet with Trista Groth, who's from our health department. She came out with the noise monitor that is used throughout the city to measure if it's violating our noise ordinance. I won't speak for her, but her report is actually in your packet. Essentially, she did indicate that the music levels did not exceed the noise ordinance that the city has. However, she was able to hear music in a unique way because she could not hear music when she was standing right out the fence on the other side of the fence from the facility. But then when she moved about a block away to a neighboring street, she could hear the music clear, not exceeding our noise limit, but she could hear the music clear. And she couldn't hear all the other noise. She couldn't hear the slide. She couldn't hear the children screaming, etc. So Chelsea has reached out as best she could to whoever might be considered a professional in the world of sound. She was able to reach out and talk with someone from UWGB. They looked at the situation, and granted, they did not come out and, they were just providing helpful advice to us. They essentially indicated that they do believe, the word I guess I'll use, and I hope I'm accurate, is reverberation, that the music is bouncing off of something, which is causing it to travel in a unique way. And there are things that we could do to, I don't want to say eliminate that, but can certainly help the cause. And some of that would obviously mean with direction of speakers and other aspects. So we do feel music is an important part of our facility. That being said, we certainly do not want music to be a hindrance to the neighborhood. So we feel there are some things that we need to look into and do that will help that, the so-called reverberation. If we can't figure it out through directing of speakers and different speakers, then I think that would go to another discussion point from the staff perspective. So that's from the staff end of things. I think someone's here. I'm not sure if they are, but if they are, I would recommend to open the meeting and allow people to speak on it.
I'll move to open the floor.
Second.
Thanks. All those in favor of opening the meeting, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. The meeting is now open. I know this is a speakers list, but I don't know what topic, so.
I don't.
All right.
I think these are all for the.
I've got a speakers list here. I will read down it. If you are not here to speak on the item.
Randy, I would maybe just simply ask if there's anyone here for that topic. Just, I think there's probably less people for that topic than there would be.
Next one.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board regarding the music at VFW? Joe, please step forward. It's a formality, but please state your name and address again.
Still Joe Nick, still 227 Bell Avenue.
Thank you.
I didn't learn about this issue until I checked your agenda this morning to find out the time for this meeting to talk about the invitation to this event that you're all coming to. But I looked at what was presented to you about the noise issue, and I concluded pretty quickly that what's been given to you really isn't enough information to fully understand what's going on in broader terms. I've been involved in these noise issues, as the older persons here know, and the information I give, they know about already because this has been before the Finance Committee and also up to the Council. The history is that DPR has had a noise ordinance since 1974. The original one was okay, but not great. In 2015, there was an application for rezoning by someone who wanted to build some apartment buildings in West De Pere. And there was an adjoining property operated as a tavern that had a tiki bar and had live music at the tiki bar. And the owner of that tavern was concerned that if the city granted the zoning request for apartments to be built near his bar, that the people there would complain about the music and there would be trouble. At that time, the city council responded by simply amending the noise ordinance to increase all of the limits. This is for the benefit of one tavern. Now, those limits were increased to the point where you ended up with a noise ordinance that was virtually unenforceable because those limits were so high. Since that time, in 2015, there have been quite a few noise complaints in De Pere, and what's happened in most of those is that either the sanitarian has gone out or the police have gone out, measured the sound, and decided that it didn't meet the limit, and essentially did nothing. In other words, the memo that you have from Trista Growth is something that is a pattern of what's occurred. The example I like to think of in this situation is, what if the city decided that the speed limit in the entire city on our nice, kind of suburban streets would be 60 miles an hour? Okay, well, no one's going to drive 60 miles an hour just because you can't do that on our city streets. And the result would be you wouldn't have anything to enforce. You wouldn't enforce any speed limit. You've got the noise ordinance in a...
Hey, Randy?
Yes, Dean.
Randy, I need to interrupt a little bit because some of the information that Joe is giving is not factual. I was actually part of the city council and decision process for that.
Hey,
That
go ahead,
ordinance was not revised just for that one business.
Well, okay, I guess we can agree to disagree on that, Dean.
The ordinance was revised.
I've reviewed all the tapes of the meetings at that time period, Dean. That was where it was initiated.
Yeah, but Joe, it wasn't specifically for that one business that we revised that ordinance. We revised that ordinance for some other things related to entertainment districts that we might be developing in the future. So it wasn't geared to just one business.
Judy recommended that, Dean, but you didn't do it. Okay. Anyway, what happened is that you've got this situation where you have a noise ordinance from 2015 to the present that has never been enforced. And what occurred because there were a number of complaints, in March of 2022, a year and a half ago, this then came before the Finance and Personnel Committee, which decided that because of that situation, that they would hire a consultant. And they had some good guys named Avant Acoustics, who then came back with recommendations in August and October of 2022. That was finally taken up by the Finance Committee at their meetings in March and April. And Avant had made some very good recommendations for improvement of the noise ordinance. The recommendation by the Finance Committee went to the council in April, and they referred it back to staff, and it has not come up again. Now, I anticipate that at some point in time, the council will decide to consider that, and they should take Avant's recommendations, and we should get a workable noise ordinance. Now, the position I've taken in the meantime is that people who live in Green Bay, in the situation where you don't have anything enforceable, should do their best to voluntarily modify their behavior to not cause noise problems for their neighbors. And the city should be involved in that effort. What we have here, I mean, I've looked at the complaint. I think the people on Reed Street really have a legitimate gripe. And it is a really bad look, I think, for the city, in terms of the operation of its own parks, to be taking advantage of this change in the law back in 2015. The city, I think, should be a good citizen, as Marty says, and really do its best to solve this problem. I suspect that Marty doesn't know this history. The thing that you should be doing is not talking to UWGB, as good as those guys might be, but you have a very, very good noise consultant already on retainer who has made recommendations that might address this problem. You should talk to them and you should listen to them. Thank you. Do you want to have any questions for me, Dean? It's your district.
Joe, I do not have any questions for you, but I can assure you that it's not 100% factual what you just stated. I do appreciate your opinion, though, but I was part of that decision.
Is there any other part that you disagree with? But I'd happy to address that with you, and if I'm wrong, I'll admit it.
I think for you and I, we probably can talk about it after the fact, because at this point, it's probably a little bit more involved than that.
Well,
but I do appreciate your opinion, Joe.
Well, I haven't heard anything since April, Dean. If you have a plan to bring this back to finance or the council, I would really like to hear about that. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board around the VFW noise issue?
Move to close.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor of closing the meeting, say aye.
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 Jim?
Jim and
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? The motion carries. We're back in closed session. Jim?
Just a couple of questions for Marty. Has anything changed with the volume over there? I mean, this has been...
So, I will tell you, I do not believe so. Now, what I can also tell you is that I'm not there all day long monitoring the physical volume level.
Well, let me ask you this then.
Let me jump.
Sure.
We actually, on our amplifier system, we actually have a noted line where it is not to be turned past. So we've worked with our staff to ensure that they physically and mentally understand where they're not supposed to go past. Has it ever gone past that? I can't sit here and tell you that because that's not how the volume button works. But we do have a marker on our amplifier system that says nothing past this point.
Okay. The other question is, the pool's been open and going for this is the end of the second season. Is this the first time you got an official kind of a complaint?
So, interesting note, when I talked with Mr. Kostrewa, he indicated that he's been calling ever since it opened. I can tell you I have never received a complaint. Our rec supervisor has never received a complaint. The police department has never received a complaint. I can't tell you that they called and left a message at the pool and it wasn't deleted. I can't tell you that they talked with the pool manager. However, I would be inclined to believe we have very good pool managers. If they received a complaint, a citizen complaint, it is typically passed on to their supervisor, which would be Chelsea and myself, depending on what year it was. And we never received those complaints.
Okay. The one person said that there was loud music 24 hours, 7 days a week. I assume that's an exaggeration.
I hope so.
It's not open.
Yeah, we're not open 24 hours.
Thank you.
We're not Quick Trip.
Shayna, did you have a?
That was my question.
Okay.
If they're having complaints
Thanks.
prior.
So we can ask staff to take a look at this. We can ask them to,
Yeah,
Marty, I
just
guess-
as a reminder, it is a discussion item. It was an opportunity for the complaint to come forward and voice their concern. And then from there, you can give some direction, but there really is no action allowed on the agenda item.
Ryan.
I think the things that you mentioned, looking at the possibly the direction, location of the speakers, and seeing how that reverberates, the action steps that you kind of already laid out sound like a good place to start.
Mm-hmm.
At this point in time, I'm kind of gathering that you would not, unless something were to change, you would not foresee it becoming an action item in the future.
It seems like staff seems to have a good plan right now in place, and if we get further complaints, then we will look to take more action,
Okay.
to take action.
Yeah.
I raised my hand, but that was my.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You want in?
It's hard.
I'm on the end.
All right.
No.
Melissa. No, you're good.
I agree with Randy.
Sorry.
That's okay.
My bad. Dean, anything to add? I think he had to step away.
No, I'm good.
All right, thank you, Dean. All right, discussion item 2, discussion regarding removal of community garden at Lions Trailside Park due to condition. Marty, can you give us a little background, please?
So my background will be a little bit shorter than the other one. So we received the request from Alderperson Hanson for the park board to consider the concerns raised by some residents about the condition of the community garden and surrounding area of the park. So that's about as far as we are with staff. We've heard some of the concerns. We relayed the concerns to Brown County Extension, who is in charge of the program. We looked at some of the concerns that were related to our park, and our park superintendent has looked at that. There are some things, like when it comes to maintenance of the park end of things, we have a rotation, I don't want to say we have limitations. We have our staffing, and certain weather conditions can put us behind the 8 ball. Doesn't mean it's not an excuse. It's just, it is what it is, unfortunately. When we essentially have 5 people, and our summer seasonals, but I could go on a big dissertation on like all the other things that go on, that need to be done. But, I think the main concern of the agenda item is the condition and location of the community garden. I could be wrong. But with that being said, I am pretty sure there's a number of people here that have an interest in the topic, and my suggestion is to open the meeting and allow people to say their piece relating to the topic.
Thanks.
I'll move to open the meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor of opening the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The meeting is now open. We'll work from the speakers list when the speakers list is empty, I'll ask if there are more people who wish to address the board.
Randy,
Yep.
real quick, I'm sorry.
Nope.
One thing I forgot to mention too is Alderperson Hanson asked me, he was sent a series of photos of the condition of the garden. He asked if I would forward those to you. So instead of trying to figure out how to send that big of file, we just printed them off and gave them to you.
Thank you. I apologize. My ability to read handwriting has gone down with the advent of a lot of electronics. Bob Waldgrebe, I apologize if I mispronounced. Thank you. For the record, please state your name and address, please.
Okay. First of all, Commissioners, I would like to thank Jonathan Hanson and Pamela Gantz for their quick response in getting Lions Park and Community Gardens on the agenda. My name is Bob Wilgruby. I'm the Secretary of the Association, and I live at 831 Killarney Trail. My colleague Wayne Andrews, sitting next to me here, is the President. He resides at 855 Killarney Trail. And we're here representing the Killarney Trail Condominium Master Association. The reason we are here is to bring to your attention the condition of the park and the community gardens. We feel the park and the gardens are not up to the City of De Pere standards, of which the gentleman just related to. The park maintenance certainly is not up to the level as Voyager and Legion Park. For example, the grass was not cut for 3 weeks. Weeding and grass trimming and also tree and shrub replacement were not done. The gardens are another story. The original garden planning group assumed that the Lions Park was not being used except for the sledding hill used during winter months. When we found out the city was planning to have a community garden constructed in the park, we asked why none of the homeowners living just feet from the garden were not contacted for our opinion. None of us was. As far as the park not being used, nothing was further from the truth. Kids and adults were around just about every day, biking, climbing the hill, flying kites, playing football, baseball, and any other games they can do, of course, without any equipment supplied by the city. I'm going to repeat that last remark. Without any equipment supplied by the city, because there's none in the park. Today, there are very few kids using the park since the community gardens went in 4 years ago, and they've taken up most of the area back there where the kids no longer play there. Currently, the maintenance of the garden plots has declined to allow weeds growing 3 to 5 feet high. It seems the weeds are flourishing, and some of the garden plots have also been abandoned. The gardens have become a real eyesore. We have watched as weed whackers and hedge trimmers have become the garden tools of choice. The local condo owners also have concerns about the value of our units overlooking the gardens due to the poor condition of the park and gardens. In conclusion, the Killarney Trail Condo Association would like to see the park adequately maintained, filled with playground equipment and picnic tables. We wholeheartedly don't want the gardens to discontinue. We just want them moved so that the park can be used as a park, not as a garden. Again, that's the end of my presentation. If anyone has any questions, I'll entertain those.
Does anyone have any questions? Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
Rachel Quintas? Please state your name and address for the record.
Rachel Quintas, 2012 Vine Street.
Thank you.
First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone who is here in support of our gardens and the program itself. I am Rachel Quintas. I just received the position of the Community Gardens Coordinator. That position was left by the previous coordinator in early July. So there was quite a gap of that position being empty. I did spend this past year as a seasonal worker with the gardens. Again, it's just during the summer months. I came on last summer, and then basically my old position as the assistant just kind of goes over until early April when the gardens open. So there was quite an empty space there for quite some time. And that time just so happened to take place towards the end of the season. I'm not quite sure when the complaints came in, but I was made aware just pretty recently. The end of the season isn't the prettiest of the time of the garden, and I just like to go over some of the reasons as to why the engagement in the gardens was a little bit below average. Again, these aren't excuses. These are just situations that we had to navigate. First and foremost, the air quality situation really upheld a lot of our gardeners from getting into the gardens as actively as they have in the past. I don't believe that this has been an issue. Don't quote me on this. I haven't been around too long, but I don't believe that there has been any issues like this at the Lions Park until now. A lot of our gardeners, unfortunately, not a lot, there is a number of gardeners who do deal with health issues. So a few of those plots that I think the gentleman before me mentioned were abandoned just because those people could physically not go out into their gardens and take care of their plots due to the air quality and also due to the severe heat advisory warnings that we experienced as a state and as a country this summer. And two, we did deal with the lack of water supply from the rain itself, but also we have water tanks on site, and those, I was not made aware of this until very recently, but those water tanks were not filled often enough. And that's really nobody's one specific person's fault. But we do have plans in action to fix that communication between the city of De Pere and the gardens and the programs and the gardeners themselves. So those are kind of just reasons as to why the engagement was a bit below average this season. We do deal with from time to time, gardeners abandoning their plots for a number of reasons. One of the plans that I would like to instill is an education program, more so an event at the beginning of the season to help new gardeners sort of learn the ropes of opening a new garden and what the work actually entails. We do have a few people who sign up, and it is really great fun and engagement, but it is a lot of work. So I'd like to set up some education in the beginning of the season to sort of set people up for just the proper etiquette of how to maintain the garden. And we do have contracts and ordinances that our gardeners do have to sign, which include like the height of the weeds, and just like general maintenance of the garden. And to be honest, there is, from time to time, people who do not follow those ordinances, and we do have consequences for that. And I do, as I step into this new position, I would like to enforce those consequences. So they are basically forfeit notices. So if our gardeners don't plant before June or by June 1st, and if they don't maintain the state of their garden, they're not able to receive a garden for next year. And then the years to come, they would have to wait on a wait list. The past couple years, two coordinators have come and gone with the department, so the past couple years have been a little difficult in the consistency of maintaining our gardens and kind of all having that strong communication. I plan to stay for some time, so I'm really hoping to get things back on track. I'd like to go over the benefits of a community garden, and I know that the gentleman before me mentioned that the option to just have the gardens moved. But I'd still like to go over the benefits of the gardens. So our program is 27 years long. It began in 1996. The foundation of the program is addressing food insecurity in Brown County, and we partner with local landowners, farmers, and cities to provide land and supplies to those who do not have access to those resources, especially those who don't have access to land or even a backyard to grow their own food. Each year, the gardens and gardeners partner with Planting for a Purpose, and we donate literally thousands of produce to local food pantries. For example, this year, site leader from Church Road Garden donated 1,000 pounds of produce to Paul's Pantry. So we really try to just really get behind the program and support it as much as we can, because the outreach and benefits go really deep into the community. A 2020 Brown County Community Gardens survey concluded that 70% of gardeners identified as low to moderate income. So we do really intend to support individuals and families growing, making their food accessible, and also culturally appropriate food. We have a high number of various demographics and culturally diverse gardeners. So it really benefits many, many people from across the span of race and ethnicity. In 2017, we did a study, and that was when we just had 10 gardens. We do have 13 now and counting. And just the 10 gardens produce $300,000 worth of produce, and we do get in touch with the landowners and the farmers to let them know the impact that these gardens really have. Again, as I said a little bit earlier, we do have a plan in place to hopefully make up for our lack of ability to be as involved as we have been in the past. So again, as I said, strongly implementing forfeit notices. If gardeners don't plant by June 1st, their plot will be forfeited and given to a gardener on the wait list. We do have a really long wait list just because it's very, very necessary to people in our community to have such a wonderful opportunity to grow their own food. It's not just, some people do it for a hobby, some people do it for fun, but the education and the dependence on these gardens is quite literal. If gardeners do not follow their guidelines, so as I mentioned, we do have ordinances and contracts prior in the season, and every gardener has to sign that contract, and it just basically goes over the no use of pesticides and also the weeds and general appearance of the gardens. If they don't follow those guidelines, their plot will be forfeited and again given to somebody else. I was trying to come up with different ideas as to what we could do to make the garden look a bit more pretty. Again, it is a produce garden, so it doesn't have a lot of blossoming flowers, and yeah, I guess that would be really the only appeasing thing. We're not really botanical gardens, is what I see in my mind's eye. So I was thinking we could plant flowers surrounding the garden, like around the border, to sort of assist with, I mean, it is planted in the middle of a grass yard, so we do have to deal with long grasses becoming an issue, just in terms of the location. And then if we do receive the funds and the grants for it, we would be more than happy to install like a picket fence, just to sort of maybe offer a little bit of privacy for the residents. And then, as I also mentioned earlier, instilling some education for new gardeners especially, just so they have an understanding as to the work that goes into truly maintaining your gardens, and just what goes into truly being a community member and respecting the space. You know, we really don't want anyone upset about the gardens. It happens from time to time, but we really, really do intend to just make it a feel-good space for everybody, and that includes the surrounding residents. The community gardens mean so much to the families of Brown County. They provide literal food security directly to the families who rent the plots and to the local pantries per the donations the gardens and gardeners provide. The appearance of the garden, specifically this season, revolved majorly around factors that were out of our control. Like I said, air quality and heat advisories. I'm not trying to make excuses. We definitely could have stepped up, prior to the complaints coming in, but some things, were just out of our control this season. For the factors that we can control, though, we will, such as planting flowers as more of an eye-pleasing border and installing the fencing if we receive the funding. And that's all I have today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, actually. You said there was a wait list for the trailside or across?
I don't know off the top of my head if there is a wait list for the trailside specifically. Just generally speaking, our wait list for all the gardens, I believe that we compile that wait list. I could definitely get that information to somebody here, though, tomorrow. It's on my work computer.
That's okay.
Shayna.
Sorry if I missed this. How long has this been a garden in this location?
So with my recent involvement with the program, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm sure somebody here definitely does.
4 years. 4 years. Okay,
4
thank you.
years. Okay.
Can you tell me how many people are gardening at Trailside?
If I had, it's in the upper 20s, 25, rough estimate.
And if this community garden were to cease to exist, where would be the next closest garden for people to take advantage of this program?
It is our only one in De Pere. So it would be fairly out of the way for those people who do garden there, just because many of those gardeners are De Pere residents, hence why they garden there. But even some of our gardeners, live in those apartments right there, like just next to the garden. So it's quite literally a walk outside their back door. But yeah, that's the only one in De Pere. So they would have to go to somewhere in Green Bay, which is a 25-minute drive, and not all of our gardeners drive. We do have a few elderly folk who just don't drive or are incapable.
Thank you. Other questions for Rachel? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the speakers list is Wayne Endries. Do you have anything more to add? I know Bob kind of lumped you with him during his speech, but
You want me to come up?
please come up if you'd like to address us. Thank you.
Okay. First and foremost,
Even though I've got you on the speakers list, please state your name and
Okay.
address for the record, please.
I'm Wayne Endries. I live at 855 Killarney,
Thank you.
right behind the gardens. First off, I'm for the gardens. Don't get me wrong. Just we feel that the garden is in the wrong location. It's in the middle of a park. Parks should be used for running around and picnics and stuff like that. And yes, the garden has been in existence 4 years. And over time, in my estimation, the weeds have gotten higher every year, and it's getting worse and worse. The people do produce some good items. I'm happy for that. And I know they get a lot of enjoyment on it. That's why I don't want to see it disbanded, just relocated to a site that they could go and do whatever they wanted with it and not bother anybody with the gardening. And they can let the weeds get longer if they so choose. And home values is a concern too. For us, we're right there. And I don't want that to have any effect on the sale of my home, and it's probably going to come up. So, other than that, that's about all I have to say. I would like to see the park be used like it should be. And I don't feel that a garden in the middle of it is the answer. And it shouldn't have, well, in the first place, I don't think it should have been put there, but we had no say in it. So that's all I have.
Any questions for Wayne? Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Krisha R? Christina, sorry, thank you.
I won't make you say my last name.
Thanks.
And Rainier.
Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Christina Rainier, and I live at 515 North Huron Street here in De Pere. My husband and I have been gardening with the Brown County Community Garden Program since 2016. We are De Pere residents and have been so for over 20 years. On the De Pere Park Board's website, the term Nature's Playground is used to describe their mission. For the last 4 years, the De Pere Parks Department has partnered with the Brown County Community Gardens Program and the UW Extension Office to provide space for a community garden within Lions Park. This seems to be a perfect match to accomplish both the very reason we have parks and the outcomes of community gardening. That is, to cultivate community, provide recreation, and nourish neighborhoods, while doing so in a way that's friendly to our beautiful northeastern Wisconsin environment. Brown County Community Gardens are organic. There are no dangerous chemicals used at the garden that could leach into the water table or affect neighboring properties. Nationwide, community gardens have been shown to actually increase property values. And must I point out that in that particular neighborhood, property values have actually gone up by $100,000 in the last 3 years. Community gardens reduce crime in an area. Gardeners care about the land that they are using and are more apt to report suspicious going-ons. Community gardens are beautiful. Gardeners work hard to grow flowers, colorful vegetables, and bright foliage that all passerbys can enjoy. Gardeners themselves benefit by enjoying a peaceful pocket of the neighborhood, a mini ecosystem, where just in the last couple of days when I was out there on Monday, bees were thriving, frogs were jumping, goldfinches and butterflies were flitting from plant to plant, and sandhill cranes were gathering right along the garden edge to eat said frogs. On any summer evening, you'll find gardeners tending to their plants, some for hours every day. They find joy, peace, and connection with neighboring gardeners. You might overhear two gardeners comparing salsa recipes, or parents showing their 8-year-old how to grow potatoes. Or maybe you'll hear the gleeful shrieks of discovering a prize pumpkin peeping out from under the leaves. These interactions happen, no matter if there are age differences, cultural differences, language barriers, political differences, or socioeconomic differences. This builds a sense of pride both in self and in community. Gardens educate the next generation about nutrition, civic duty, the environment, and preserves our great state's agricultural values. Those who wouldn't normally be prone to being active have the opportunity to do so and thus lead healthier lives, reducing obesity and stress levels. Community gardens allow those who can't afford high grocery store prices to grow their own organic, fresh, healthy food for their families for a nominal cost. In fact, 20 servings of fresh food can be gleaned from just 11 square feet of land. This is part of the solution to food insecurity woes and poverty. And there's a ripple effect, as you've heard. Extra produce is given away to non-gardening family members, neighbors, and donated to local pantries. You yourself may have been one of the lucky recipients of a fresh tomato or pasta sauce or the latest batch of zucchini bread. In a nutshell, community gardens are the answer to a lot of society's problems. Is there a potential for weeds? Absolutely. Especially during a challenging growing season such as 2023, where we had the high temperatures, the dangerous ozone levels, and severe lack of rain. However, weeds have a temporary impact and are fixable. They can be cut and carted away. The multitude of benefits that I just described are not temporary. They foster skills far into the future. They nourish the poor, cultivate friendships, and allow memories to be made without much cost to the taxpayer. I plead with you to keep the community garden at Lions Park for the greater community. Thank you.
Any questions for Christina? Just one. I think you mentioned that you're a gardener there?
Yes.
How many years have you gardened there?
For the last 3 years I've been there, and previous to that I had to go, being here in De Pere as a resident, I had to go up all the way to the Old North Garden, which is off of Eastman Avenue.
Thank you. Next on our speakers list, Mike Stumpf.
Mike Stump, 1826 Briarwood Court, De Pere, Wisconsin, 54115. I represent or I guess I'm representing the De Pere Lions Club. We had our meeting last Thursday, and we just heard about this on Friday. So we as a group have not had a chance to have any discussion regarding this topic. One thing about the Lions is that there's a number of strategic areas of focus internationally. And just to let you know, the Lions is the largest service organization in the world. Everybody understands the vision aspects of the Lions, but it's also diabetes, it's also hunger, and some other ones I can't remember off the top of my head. This community garden represents the De Pere Lions Club, attaining the objective in this hunger area. And the De Pere Lions Club has a significant investment in this park itself, not only the establishment of the park, not only the assisting with the establishment of the community gardens, but the water tank, the little library, the park bench that's there. All right, so we've got quite a bit of investment in it. So our hope is that, whatever is decided, that we can be part of that decision making. So that's all I have.
Any questions for Mike? Thank you. Next up, Garon Gibson. Garon.
I have nothing to add. I'm also with the De Pere Lions Club. Mike covered it.
Thank you. Jessica Birdsall.
Hi, I'm Jessica Birdsall. I live at 1742 Sunnyside Lane in De Pere. I didn't write down a bunch of facts. I just wanted to tell you my personal story as far as why I like the gardens. My mother-in-law is with me. We garden together. And I'm not a speaker, so I apologize for my voice. In 2021, my mother-in-law rented her first plot at Lions Community Garden as a way for her to get out of her house. She does live by herself. Her socializing with people is hard for her, and it really boosted her social life as far as talking with people, and her depression improved. It gave her fresh air. It's close to her duplex that she lives in, so transportation for her was really easy and convenient. When she first set up, my husband, my daughter, my son, and I helped her set up the fence around it, so it really got her started. And then we proceeded to watch her grow her plants. She was so happy and enthusiastic with how her garden was growing that I then decided to join her the next year. So in 2022, we rented 1.5 plots together. We fenced it in together, and we spent the entire summer together talking about our plants and about our family. And it was really a truly wonderful time for me to spend with her. And then I was hooked. So this summer, we now have 2 plots together, which are connected. All winter long, we spent time brainstorming how we wanted to set up our gardens to make the most of our space, because we both had so many different plants that we wanted to put in there. We spent numerous hours and hours mulching and planting and watering and weeding our plot to make it look nice, and to keep things growing. And then every day when we did this together, we would sit in our plastic chairs and we would talk for hours about how we're going to improve things next year, what's not working now, how can we make it better. I know most people at the garden plot grow so much produce that they're able to share with others. My mother-in-law and I share food with the food pantry, with friends and family and coworkers and neighbors, and seeing the joy on their faces, like with my coworkers, when I give them fresh carrots and whatnot, they love it. Yes, they can get it at the grocery store, but I think they feel amazing when I hand them carrots that still have the dirt on them. I have learned so much by watching the fellow gardeners. They have so much knowledge. I love looking at what they're growing, what their trellises look like. Some of them have such original creativity. I like seeing how their gardens are organized, and if I was without this community garden plot, I would be missing out on all this knowledge. I'm a fairly new gardener. But the thing that I cherish the most about this community garden is the time that I spend alone with my mother-in-law. This time cannot be replaced in any other way. Gardening is something that brings us both so much happiness, and our conversations about gardening do last all year long. We truly talk about gardening through the winter. It gets us through the dreary, cloudy winters. So please let us continue our tradition with gardening together, and then we will, in return, continue to bring joy to others by sharing what we put so many hours into growing. Thank you for listening.
Any questions for Christina? Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, that was Jessica. Two speakers back. Sorry, John Nearing? John Nearing? Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm John Nearing, and my address is 527 North Wisconsin Street. And I just wanted to say that I'd like you to keep the garden, because with this garden I can do one of my hobbies, which is canning, and we can also, my family can eat like fresh vegetables throughout the winter and year. So we really like that. And that's it.
Any questions for John? Thank you. Lori?
Sadie Water.
Thank you. Sadie Wire?
Hi, I'm Lori Sadie Water, 407 South Michigan Street. I'm not a gardener. I'm here because I'm married to a gardener. And I won't bore you with all the details about what goes into it when you get the seed magazines which I thought one seed magazine is enough, but apparently not. Then you get the seeds, and then you plant the seeds in a little pot, and then you move them to larger pots, all under grow lights, getting ready for the spring, getting ready for the summer, getting ready to go to your garden. I'm going to speak because I don't really know the specifics of the technical reasons for this, but apparently when you plant, you also want to rotate your crops, even in a small garden plot, and you want to amend your soil, and you want to, and De Pere soil isn't the best. So the people that have the plots at the garden really want to protect the plots that they have, and they want to have the same plots year after year because they know what they're doing is making their area better. So I think everyone here is very protective of the garden, of their fellow gardeners, of their area. And like I said, I'm not even a gardener, but I feel for all of this, and I appreciate everything that they put into it. I think there's possibly a difference of opinion of what the word park means to different people. And unfortunately, there may be some antiquated ideas of what that definition is. The other thing I want to say with regard to condo association, I didn't realize we could bring some pictures. I would have some pictures as well of the empty plots over the last few years next to the condos in which some of the individuals who were here earlier live. And the weeds in those empty lots were far higher than any weeds in the garden at any point in time. And I'd just like to know if the condo association complained about that situation. I don't know who owns the plots. I don't know if that's the condo association, but I have pictures from this year as well. And the new condos that have gotten built, the weeds are out of control there as well. So if the individuals who are complaining about the gardens, if they're not hypocrites, then hopefully they're complaining about their fellow neighbors. And I don't recall ever hearing any of the gardeners talking about the weeds in the empty lots, which could potentially cause problems for the gardens with the weeds and everything blowing over and helping implement weeds into the garden areas. I guess that's all I have to say.
Any questions for Lori? Thank you. Christy Kirscher is next on the speakers list.
So I'm Christy Kirscher. My husband and I and children live on Swan Road, 1975 Swan Road, apartment 513, here in De Pere. And so I am here to speak for my kids because they dearly love the garden so much. And for us, it's super important. My husband and I have been saving for a long time for a home for ourselves so we can have a backyard for our kids, but we're not quite there yet. So this garden was a way to give our kids a place to run and have sunshine and play in the dirt because that's the best we can do for a sandbox right now. And it also provides us some good food. Our kids are off screens when we're out there. They are digging in dirt. They are learning about things. My daughter this year, she's 5 years old, my eldest, and she helped me with everything. You should have seen us in the store. She's throwing seeds in the cart like, I want to grow this and this and this. And she's so excited about all of it. And they were so good with even starting the seeds in the home, watering them every day and getting them out of the porch when it was warm enough. They were with me out in the garden, getting everything set. We had a meticulous blueprint for where we were putting our trellises and where we were going to grow our green bean like tunnel where they were going to climb under and have their little shade and pick the beans. And it's been a beautiful, wonderful process with them and for them. And I have to say, this is our second year at the garden, and my third year gardening altogether. So I'm also learning along with them. So for both of us, for all of us, it's been a great learning experience. And they've seen me get books at the library and do research and talk to my mother, who is a farmer. And we've been talking with our neighbor gardeners right next to us and seeing, what do you do? Because I will admit, our first year, we didn't know much about weed control at all. So with our second year, we tried some other things like laying down landscaping fabric, and someone has an idea about using cardboard and wood chips, and so we're getting great ideas from each other to try to improve the space, and we're learning so much. This was our biggest year for produce ever, just because of what I learned from the people growing around us. I'll also say that last year our kids also used this to release their butterflies. We did a butterfly habitat at home, and it was the perfect place. We learned about how butterflies can pollinate, and so we brought them there. And every time we go back to the garden, they see a butterfly. My daughter, I swear, she says, "That's my butterfly." So it's a really special place to them. It really, really is. And along with it, someone mentioned canning. So along with the gardening, this issue, now that we have so much produce, I now have the issue of, what do I do with all of these tomatoes? I don't know what to do. So now we have a problem we have to fix, and we got a pressure canner, and now we're canning. And this was all new too. So my kids are learning along with me. It's great for their education, the fine motor skills, them peeling the tomatoes and everything. And I'm a teacher, so I love all of this, how we can incorporate that with earth science lessons and everything. Someone mentioned they want to see kids playing out there. You guys, see my kids playing out there. They are having a blast. And when they need a break with gardening, no, they don't have play equipment, but they don't need it really. They take their balls and their hula hoops and they run them down the sledding hill, and they do it over and over and over again. They laugh and play. It's a wonderful space to have a garden. They love it. So I just want to say, for my sake, also, not just my kids, but for me, there are times as a mom, I have 3 little kids. The house does get loud, so sometimes my husband gives me that quiet time out in the garden, and that's really special to me as a mom. And so when I get that time to talk to other grown-ups that aren't like little kids, right now, some people are laughing. I know you know what I'm talking about, right? Okay, I have time to talk to other grown-ups about grown-up things and not just be surrounded by ABCs and Frozen and whatever it is. So it's so beneficial to my mental health, and it helps me to be joyful as a mom. And that brings joy into our whole home. And I know that no one can see that. Maybe you can see them giggling and pointing at things and getting excited about plants when you walk by. But if I weren't here telling you that, you would not see, what it does to our home. So I will say, I am guilty of letting the weeds go away. There was a month and a half. I don't know if you can tell, but we have our 4th one on the way. Morning sickness got me for like a month and a half. It really did. And my husband, he was a rock star through it all. He took care of the kids for me while I laid in bed and just did my best to keep food down. So we didn't really get to the garden much during that time, but now 2nd trimester is kicking in, and we're getting back to our vision, and we're getting back to the garden, and we clean that up. Along with some of the other plots that were abandoned, I will tell you, last week was the very first time I heard of there being any complaints about the garden. And I think that that has a lot to do with the fact that we just didn't have leadership. We didn't have someone in the position to even communicate that to us. And really, the people who need to know about that type of concern are the gardeners. We're the people out there. We're the people who care most about, what's going on out there. And so you should have seen what happened the moment we got that email. As a whole group, all the gardeners are throwing out ideas. What can we do? Can we do a volunteer day? We got together, we organized a day where we could all go, and we hit those abandoned plots, those people who couldn't be there because of medical conditions or whatever. I totally understand, because I have grandmas, I have my mom. There have been times where, I don't know, they just couldn't, things fell behind. And I totally understand that. And I want to be helpful, not judgmental, but helpful. So it was really, really cool to see how everyone in this garden community came together to help out those people who just couldn't be out there. And we really did a lot of work and cleaned that up. And I foresee that if there are any problems in the future, it would be like nothing to get us all back together to help clean up, help out those people who are falling behind. That's what community is for. You know, that's what we're here to do. So I would not be opposed to, like, and I don't know what kind of funds are out there, but I would not be opposed to helping put up pretty fences, planting some flowers, getting maybe a walkway, like stone or brick walkway in our pathway or something. I know one of the issues was the grass growing in the walkway between the plots, that it doesn't belong to any one certain gardener. Those are things we can definitely address, I would think, and work together to fix. So I know there's a lot of care from the people in here and involvement that if we wanted to move in a route of, hey, let's do a spaghetti dinner and fundraise for something like this and really get some beautiful things out there, I know that people would be on board with it. Because really a garden is a place that we should all be proud of, that our whole community should be proud of. It should be something beautiful that we all love to look at and enjoy. So that's really all I have to say. Please let us keep our garden. It's like sometimes my one source of sanity, and my kids really, really love it. I promise them I'd do the best to convince you, and they're sitting at home praying that everything works out. So thank you for listening to me, and I please let us keep it. Thank you.
Any questions? Evan Erhard.
Hello, Eben Erhard, 407 South Michigan Street. Some of you may have seen me a couple days ago presenting for the De Pere Beautification Committee. I also serve as the volunteer coordinator for the Northeast Wisconsin Master Gardeners. I've been a gardener at Lions Community Garden for 4 years since the beginning. If you Google parks or what are the benefits of community parks in municipalities, the first thing you'll find is recreation for the citizens. I think that is what the gardens provide at the Lions Trailside Park. We have, by my count, assuming I'm guessing on Christy's youngest son Leo's age of under 1, we have 2 gardeners that are under 1, and we have gardeners that are octogenarians. And if you think about that, I think that's a huge win for De Pere. I don't think there's any facilities you have that probably have that age demographic. We all grow a lot of food there. We've heard a little bit about the donations of food through Gardening for a Purpose. I was involved in that program for 2 years, and I have to admit that the paperwork involved when I would go to donate just made it kind of, I'd rather just walk up to the food pantry or wherever and donate it, but I've donated over 200 pounds of food every year I've gardened at the garden. Some of this goes to food pantries, some of it goes to individuals. I've walked around a senior citizen housing facility with little like lunch bags full of tomatoes to give to the residents. I would probably be remiss if I didn't say I gave tomatoes to touring musicians at Mile of Music. The list goes on. I try and share the wealth, a little bit, drop of sunshine, a cherry tomato at a time. I know there's been complaints about the garden since before it existed from individuals that live in the area, and I understand that. We all have neighbors and things that we don't necessarily like. You might have a park with a soccer field, a baseball field, a pool that has a radio that's too loud. You might have a guy down the street that has a race car that has to rev the engine at about 5,000 RPM to clear out the carburetor or something every Saturday and Sunday. Well above the noise level, I would think, but I have tried to be the good neighbor and not complain. You might live next to Legion Park, where there's a pool, a ball diamond, a pink flamingo tournament, and perhaps the worst noise of all, pickleball. No offense to all of the participants of America's fastest growing sport. As for the complaints of weeds, I don't know the history of complaints from the gentleman from the condo association. I hope they were complaining about the Phragmites on the north end of the park, where is part of the now mitigation program that De Pere has taken on. I hope they are complaining about the thistles on the east side of the sledding hill, the teasel, the Linearia vulgaris, which is now growing out there, all of which are invasive species. But my assumption is they're more concerned with the invasive human species. As for an area for kids to play, we've heard about the kids that play in the garden. If you've done a tour of the park, there is plenty of room to the north of the garden for almost any activity. It's not a full-size football field, but it would house a soccer field up to probably 6th grade level. So there's plenty of space there. I'm passionate about keeping the garden where it is. The soil in the park is not good. It's been a struggle for those of us that gardened the first year. The water did not drain at all. It was pretty much a swamp out in some of the plots. We've gotten some organic matter put into the gardens individually and with the help of the city, which has helped quite a bit. We did have a year, I believe it was the second year, where we had a problem with a chemical. We don't know what it was in the soil. I worked on it fairly extensively. I believe it was something, a chemical that is exuded by black walnuts, and I think we got something in the mulch or the compost that we put down, but it could very well have been anything else. There's several gardeners that felt like someone went out and sprayed the gardens at night. I don't really believe that, but we don't know. The tests to test for that particular chemical that my suspicion is were very expensive and not very conclusive, so we did not follow through with that. You can see by the trees that were planted when the first complaints came out, the arborvitae on the south end of the park, they are not doing well. You will see if you go out there a lot, they're often sitting sort of in a very wet situation. One of them has now been removed because it died completely. Several others are struggling. In short, the soil's not great, but the garden area is very good now. So I guess in closing, I hope that you listen to the concerns of the few, and as Brown County did and the municipalities when they considered the Fox River Trail, side with the many and keep our park and our garden. And I also have a letter here that if I could pass it out to you from Amy Murphy, who runs the De Pere Christian Outreach Food Pantry in support of the park, because obviously she is a benefit of much of the produce.
Any questions? No. If you'd like to bring her letter forward, though, we'd be happy to have it. If we wind up short, Grace and I can share it.
Thank you. Short enough?
Is there somewhere to get one to Dean?
Here,
Dean's not on the meeting anymore.
we can get one to Dean.
Yeah, he's gone though,
Thank you.
Randy.
I can actually scan it and mail it to
Thank
you
you.
if you want.
There you go.
Perfect.
Awesome. Marty, would you like one too? You're good? All right. Is there anyone else who would like to address the meeting? We're still in open session. You can step forward and speak again, sure.
We had it.
Oh, we haven't, but maybe we should empty the speakers list before we have you go a second time, please. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Williams, 1924 Evans Court in Green Bay. Even though I do live in Green Bay, I've been involved in supporting the community garden since 2013. I was raised on my grandmother's garden, and she fed all of us. And somebody told me that that the gardens had lost some federal funding and were at risk, and that the way they said it, a whole bunch of immigrants aren't going to be able to grow food this year. And I said, wow, that's not okay. And I thought I could see that that meant real things to real people and their food security. So I said, I can make a bunch of calls. And with the support of the extension, I brought some of my skills, and a lot of other people stepped up. We got AmeriCorps Vista, and we've created a program and a coordinator's guide, and we've created processes, procedures, timelines, who to call. In 2017, we had the benefit of a Dr. Drew Sheeler stepped forward from St. Norbert College to get his English course involved with writing. He'd put us something in the United Way Community Connect that his writing class was interested in working with a community organization. And so we said, thank you, we would love that. And so he got involved in it. He created a white paper that actually involved his group. And at that time, we were realizing that federal funding or ongoing government funding loss was one of the number one things that would sink a community garden. And so we, at that time, decided to form the Friends of the Community Garden so that this county program could use a 501c3 partner to help raise funds. And so our goal has been to create a long-term endowment. So we have processes and procedures. We're developing alternative funding. We've secured tax levy Brown County money, and we also have ongoing support from the city of Green Bay that helps pay for the coordinator. So there's a lot of stability, the fact that we could go out and hire a replacement coordinator. I think we're maybe facing a blip, but we're in control and overall in the big scheme of things. Dr. Sheeler, though, did get his English class to write a paper and help launch the Friends of the Community Garden, which houses its funds with the Greater Green Bay Community Foundation. And we've been a recipient of some very nice grants that both further the garden through the Greater Green Bay Community Foundation, through Schreiber, through Doctors in Recital, some for the endowment, some for things that the garden needs. But the white paper that Dr. Sheeler wrote, which was reviewed by both Mark Schaefer, the director of the Center of Business and Economic Analysis, and Jamie Lynch, the director of Strategic Research Institute, both at St. Norbert College. They looked at the data that we'd been collecting on the program usage and the annual surveys from community gardeners, and that's publicly available on the Brown County Community Garden website under About. It's the very last link at the bottom, because at this point, from 2017, it's considered dated information, but it's still good information. The economic analysis of the program says that for every $1 that you put in community gardens, there is $4.74 in direct economic benefit. And this program that does keep track of who's benefiting, primarily in majority benefits low income and often immigrant populations. And but the benefit of it is it's also considered, I've heard some leaders in the nonprofit world say this is one of the most integrated and public places for communities to rub shoulders with each other in safe ways. And it builds community. And we've had beautiful stories from the community gardens about somebody letting weeds get away, and which causes crisis, right? As we've seen recently. One Eastern Indian woman gardening lost control and her hoe broke and she started to cry. One of the lovely Hmong ladies said, "Are you going to be here a minute? I'm going to go home." And she got her a hoe that her brother-in-law had made, one of their special Hmong hoes. And watching this, so they then worked together and got our weeds under control. And watching this, a Mexican gardener nearby said, "Hey, let's all have a beer." And so they sat together and rubbed, shoulders and helped each other that way. But this, we've got teachers, we've got foodies, we've got survivalists, we've got traditionalists who just want to grow grandma's tomatoes, who like to can. So this is I think I said foodies, but we've got people of every type in this garden, both wealthy and poor. But the statistics say that we are more low income. But when you mix communities, community development theory says that you actually raise all individuals and you further integrate. The Brown County Public Health, the Community Health Improvement Plan that the hospitals create with the Public Health Department, I think it was in 2021, they actually named community gardens not as a public health benefit to increase food security. They actually said that the benefit of community gardens were for social cohesion. So there are more than this white paper shows the number of organizations in a web of impact that work together to support community gardens. Gardening is 55% of Americans say that they participate in gardening. People have mentioned the mental health, the physical benefit, the stress reduction, physical activity. The city of Hobart has said that they have actually had reduced crime in their Four Seasons Park because more eyes are out, so it's reduced vandalism. That's a benefit of community gardens. We actually heard about a person who chose, right after, 4 years ago when the community garden was put in, they actually chose to live in that area because there was a community garden. We worked with Mark Schaefer to identify other ethnically diverse and high-density housing areas which is preferentially where we put community gardens, which this is a really nice location because you are by high-density housing areas where people do not have access. In terms of moving the garden, I'd like to address that, which the master gardener here so skillfully addressed, soil, knowledgeably addressed soil composition. There's a mycorrhizal fungal network that builds underneath garden soil as you add compost. It's not just a matter of just moving a garden. You actually put it back several years in terms of the development of the soil and its ability to grow successfully. Also, there's the access. There's a section in the Brown County Community Gardens website that talks about starting gardens. Sunshine, access to at least 6 to 8 hours minimum of unfiltered sun. That's a great access area. Also, water access. So that tank, if you move it to maybe potentially further from your water source, it's going to become unfeasible to keep that tank full. That's just another thing, or expensive to run a water line. So that's been a successful area to near parking and near high density housing. Any other questions you have for me?
Thank you, Cheryl.
All right, thank you.
Marty, we have not had a crowd like this since I've been chair of the board. And that goes back just a few years, but I'm not sure on rebuttals. I believe people can speak a second time, but I'm not sure. Can you help me out? Are there guidelines that I may not be aware of?
No, it's up to the park board and how you would like to handle it.
Right. I would ask that anybody who addresses the board under open meeting, just address your concerns or your thoughts on the issue to the board and not to anyone present, so.
And it should be kept to a time limit, right?
Yeah, we didn't. I know. Yeah. Anyway, we're not going to do it in the middle because that would not be due process. So, is there anyone else who wishes to address the board regarding the issue on the community gardens? No. All right. I will accept a motion to go back into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
With Melissa. All those in favor of going back to closed session, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. We're back in closed session. Any further discussion on the issue before us? Jim.
Thank you. I have a couple of things to say. First, I really appreciate the turnout I like to hear from people who use the parks and are passionate about it. I saw this on the agenda, so I went out there this afternoon and I walked around the park, walked around the garden, all the way around it. And the first thing that came to mind was, uh-oh, this looks just like my park, my garden. Is somebody going to come and complain about my garden? I've got a lot of squash and pumpkins growing, and I'm training the vines all around the outside of the perimeter of the yard. They're all turning yellow. They're growing out of control. I have vines growing up into 2 or 3 trees. And I just thought there's really nothing unusual about what I'm seeing here out at the gardens. They look fairly typical, and it was obvious a couple of them haven't been cared for and the weeds were a little bit out of control, but I didn't see anything really objectionable about it. And I'd like to point out, it was really kind of neat. There's somebody out there, it's a Jerry and Peggy Bray. They put a sign out, a really nice sign out there inviting people to try the heirloom tomatoes. Kids, give this a try. I just think that's really cool and indicative of what I'm hearing about this community out there. It was said, and I think the gardens are for everybody to use. It's not, there's not some sanitized list of things people can do in parks. I mean, I remember when the disc golf came up, there was lots of objections to that about the chains rattling. But there's people out there every day using it, and it really makes me feel good. It makes me wonder if somebody would object to that usage out there. And as for the park itself, it's really pretty big. I mean, the gardens take up a small percentage of the property out there. My hunch is that where the gardens are located just happen to be kind of close to where 7 or 8 condos are being built. And I can understand people coming and complaining about that, but that property is for the public use. It's not condo property. And I really think that we should all try to live and work together and try to keep this as a positive thing. And to that end, Rachel, I think you should start a weed pulling event. I'll be the first person to sign up. I'll come out there and help you guys for a couple hours. The compost facility is right down the street, so we can just load our cars up with the weeds and take them over there. And I think you should invite all the neighbors. You know, say, hey, come out and learn what we're about, see what we're doing, and that we're really trying. And I understand the concerns you had this year. I'm getting older. I didn't want to go out when I could see the smoke in the sky or when it was 100 degrees out. But I think we need to cut people some slack here. And I think the concern I'm seeing shown for the upkeep now is really a good thing. And I believe you'll all follow through with that. And I guess I could talk about a lot of things, but the one thing I'm hearing here, Marty, is that there's a waiting list for people to use these gardens. And I think it was Christy who was talking about her family, and I could really connect with that. When I was younger and couldn't afford a house for 10 or 15 years when we were married and had little kids, I would have loved to have access to something like this. I wanted to garden, but I couldn't. And I just think we're providing a real nice service with the county on this. And we should actually try to do more. If there is a waiting list, if people are coming from all over to use this plot, maybe we can put one on the west side somewhere. It's something to think about. Thank you.
Ryan, and then we'll go to Shana.
So I guess I work in the health and fitness field, and my average clientele is 60, give or take. Right now, they are all watching the Blue Zones documentaries on Netflix. And basically, it's how these people are living to age 100, being in good condition, and actually being in good health. And one of the big keys, everybody's like, what are they eating? It's not what they're eating. It's the fact that they're involved in their community. They're growing their own food in many cases. Their exercise is built into their daily. And this fits right in with that. So I'm really glad we're talking about this. My instinct is that we ought to consider expanding the garden to allow for that flower border and possibly additional plots.
Shayna.
I agree with what both of these gentlemen said. I think tonight was a really great learning opportunity for residents of the neighborhood surrounding the park and those using the community garden to hear each other out. I, for one, had no idea that this community garden was as large as it is. I was looking at the aerials during the meeting, and it was really, really exciting to hear all of your excitement about using the garden. I had no idea how popular it was. And I'm so glad that you've been enjoying it, able to enjoy it for the last 4 years. And I agree. I would love to see our park system expand on this. We have a lot of large park areas with a lot of green space that we could put a community garden in, offer it to more people to use.
Amy.
Yeah, I want to reiterate what everyone has said and follow up by saying that sometimes when something is brought forward, it's so great to see the public engagement. It often spurs a more positive outcome, and I think that's what exactly happened tonight. Everything that was mentioned today that is wrong with society has elements of what can be fixed here, including hearing each other out. I love tomatoes, you guys. I get so emotional. I really do. If any of you want to give them to me, I make sauce and I will give it back to you in a jar. So it was so inspiring to hear both the concerns and the outputs, because I think it will garner exactly what we want, more community involvement. So very exciting. Christy, is that your name? You have got to read the book Seed Folks. Hands down, I read my children 100 books. This book is all about a community garden. We rated our books, 100 novels. We rated our books on 1 to 5. My son gave this one an 8. It's so good.
Connor.
So first off, I'm 14, and it's hard to relate to all of you guys here. With that being said, I can feel for a lot of these people, and I can see the diversity just from this room that the gardens have here. And, you know, from Christy, a mom of 3, soon to be 4, we have some youth here, from gardeners that are experienced to people that are yet to try their hand and are trying their hand for the first time. It really sheds light on how community-oriented this garden will be, and clearly I don't think it should be taken out. It should be eliminated whatsoever. This is a very good thing, I guess. Sorry, I can't word it right, but anyway, with that being said, I think that there will have to be a little more maintenance done to this, from what I can see here in the pictures. And I know there was talk about there possibly being some type of play set, whatever it may be, in the park. And I know someone in the crowd said that it depends on who we're talking about in their ideal of a park. But that can be determined by the board, that can be determined by the public, what should be done. But just all in all, I think this is a great opportunity for the community to come in as a whole and get new experiences with other people, and just become more diverse individuals.
Thanks, Connor.
Randy?
Hey, Melissa.
I'm the only one that hasn't spoken. So
Well, I'm going to wrap up at the end, and
Okay.
I've got like
Oh,
15
okay.
minutes worth. So.
Okay, all right. Well, then I will keep mine short.
Thank you.
I think like Shayna, I think this is a little emotional. Not Shayna.
Amy.
Amy.
That's okay.
Shayna's sitting over there. I grew up I grew up next to my grandparents, and my dad is a landscaper, and our chores for my sister and I, every day we were each given a 5-gallon bucket, and we were told to go pick weeds, and we couldn't come back into the house until the 5-gallon buckets were full. So we learned very quickly how to fluff weeds in those 5-gallon buckets so that we could come back in the house. But my father, who is 75, has a garden that he has probably fed every food pantry in the Fox Valley because he just can't say no to planting another row of tomatoes. So I fully understand the concern about weeds, and I fully understand the value. My day job, I work and we deal with a lot of food insecurity for a lot of really great kids that don't get fresh fruit and vegetables every single day. And the idea that we have gardeners out there donating to food pantries so that kids can get those great nutrients that just really is my core of where I believe. But I hear the concerns of the condo association, and so I'm hoping, and as Amy has said, that today's meeting brings out a partnership between the condo association and Brown County Extension in recognizing everyone's concerns, but still growing this program.
Now I've got to go through my list of comments and start crossing off things that everybody else up here said, which eliminates almost everything except, my quick personal story. I'm a gardener as well, and weeds are a part of gardening, and we all have a different tolerance level for the weeds in our garden, but they're there. I appreciate all the time that everyone devoted tonight to the issue. I appreciate the respectful listening that everyone had, the sharing of stories, the ability to be open. And again, hopefully we've made some connections here. I appreciate what Rachel said early on where she talked about looking forward from her position of leadership with the community gardens and steps, she hopes to take in 2024 to make things better. And there are oftentimes things beyond our control, life situations, the climate, that get in the way of gardening, vacations, what have you. So I appreciate everyone's time tonight. I appreciate respectful listening, and I think it was a great discussion, and I think everyone is going to walk out of here much more positive, so thank you. That's a discussion item. We don't need to vote on anything, so.
Yeah, correct. Because it's listed as a discussion item, no action can be taken. Where it would go from here is if someone from the park board or council member or whoever would request the park board to make a decision on it, so request an action item. I don't know if that'll happen, but I don't, as far as protocol would go, it is discussion, there is no action, but it doesn't mean action can't come to a future meeting to ask the park board to request it.
And it sounds like there are community members that are going to be taking actions, so perhaps we don't need to at this point, but.
I think one thing that could come out of this is just much like the beautification, if annually there's an update. I think that would help hold accountability for everybody involved, and that would be really fun for all of us to hear how things are going. So, I don't know, can we throw that
Are you directing staff to request an annual update in 24
Sure.
on the status of the
Yes.
community gardens
Yes,
at
I am.
Trailside Park? Is that something like that?
Yeah.
All right, Mark, did you get that? Status update on the community gardens at Trailside Park in 2024. Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is another discussion item. Continued discussion on ordinance related to dogs in Pere Parks. Marty, you want to give us a little history on this? There's a lot in our packet.
Yes, and I'm going to not probably cover all of that stuff in your packet because there is a lot of information. What I will say is that the information that you have in your packet does support some of the discussions that you've had as park board members about leaning towards the direction of allowing dogs in parks in some capacity. So if you look at the overall, there are certain comments that you will find in there of people concerns about dogs in parks and such. But if you do look at the overall display of information, I would say that it does lean quite a bit towards the community supporting the thought of dogs being in parks in some capacity, So as a discussion item, again, it's a discussion item, no action item, but where I would suggest or recommend is that if you think the park board is in favor of moving in this direction, then what we would do as staff is we would go back, work with our legal office, work on revising the actual ordinance to accommodate moving in this direction, and then bring it back as an action item. If you don't think that you are in that direction or in that world of moving in this direction, then I would say just leave it as is.
Can you ask?
Thank you, Marty. If we could have conversations, please take place in the hallway so that we don't interfere with the meeting. Thank you. Well, we've had a long meeting, so I'm just going to cut to the chase. I like the idea of generating a proposal to update the ordinance and bring it back to the park board to allow dogs in the park in some capacity.
I agree.
I agree. I have one question.
Jim.
Lots of references in this whole study here to poop being found places. I walk through a lot of parks. I don't see poop. Is this something that happens all the time?
I have never once seen poop.
Do your people clean up poop a lot? I mean,
Well, Don is here that could probably speak for it.
Don, what about the poop?
I will go on. Go ahead. Bet you didn't think you were going to answer this kind of question tonight.
Not on poop.
Jim, aren't you the porta potty expert too?
Yes.
And now you're asking about dog poop?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
it's a habit.
Okay.
We don't run into that situation very often, although there are times that we do see it, especially where the dogs are tending to use the park more often than not.
Like when people put them in a ball field and run them free, which they're not supposed to do, obviously.
Optimist Park has been the worst. That's really been the worst. There's been some offenders there where we've told often that they're not supposed to be there. The people that would have to take care of the people that are running their dogs there are the police department. So really, we have to rely on them. We can let them know that we have the situation, but we have to rely on the police.
So just to summarize, it's kind of like the music going 24/7. It's an exaggeration when we hear everybody on this list say there's poop everywhere.
We don't get a lot of negative comments from the recreational groups at all, that there's a lot of feces in the parks.
Okay, thank you.
I see more goose poop than
Yeah.
anything.
Oh, yeah.
That, I disc
What do you do
golfed.
about
I disc
that?
golfed last night at Legion Park, and I did not step in any, nor did I see any to avoid stepping.
There we go.
Melissa.
Marty, when you go back to legal, I'm just thinking of two things. One is liability, and then the other one is, as Don has said, if there are offenders, what is the repercussions and what is the enforcement from the city in those individuals who are not following the rules, let's say leash or cleaning up or that sort of thing, to not be allowed to have the animals in the park?
Yeah, I believe it would be consistent with our current ordinance. I mean, there is an actual citation, that you can receive by being in the park with your dog. We don't do it just because, but yeah, it's certainly a conversation we'll have with legal, and we'll have to work through it.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on the topic? All right, moving on to staff updates. Oh, shoot.
Can I comment?
On the dogs?
The dog thing?
Yeah.
You would have to.
I'll move to open.
Second.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Step.
Yep.
Yeah,
Jim.
it was me.
Mike Stump, 1826 Briarwood Court. I was with the group that founded the dog park and provided the fundraising for the dog park. coincidentally, I happened to be at a board meeting where it was discussed, the whole idea of allowing dogs to be in Voyager Park. And that was a number of years ago, and that was granted. I guess my opinion would be that if, and without seeing the whole packet of information, and I'm sure you got a load of it, my opinion would be to, to really let De Pere shine in that regard and open it up in the parks. But I had, as a former dog owner, my dog passed away recently, as a former dog owner, I have no problems in the fines to be involved in this to be substantial, from that standpoint. A responsible dog owner, what I mean, has to be willing to accept that. Now, if it's a repeat offender type situation, I mean, I don't care if it's 3 times the amount of a littering fine, okay? But, so I do think De Pere can really distinguish itself in the area and in the state by doing that. And I've seen that in Victoria, British Columbia, where the parks are open to dogs and they're running. Now, that's not even, that's in an unfenced area, unleashed even. So, and it was pretty amazing the control they had. So, that's all. That was my comments. Any questions?
No, thank you for sharing.
Move to close.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. All right. Now I'm going to ask if we can move on to staff updates.
First couple updates, so these will be quick. Playground installation, so Kelly Danen has been installed. We're waiting for port in place. The contracts have been approved, but we're just waiting to get through the contracts. Legion Playground will begin installation on Monday, and Lawton, if all goes well, will begin installation on Wednesday of next week.
Super exciting.
Port in place for Legion is kind of inconsistent with Kelly Danen. We're waiting for the contracts to come back so we can get rolling. Nelson Pavilion groundbreaking, you probably got something already, but just so the public hears it, we will have our official groundbreaking next Friday, September 28th at 10:30. And we looked at the weather. It's supposed to be 74 and sunny. So couldn't ask for better weather. So hopefully everybody can make it. Southwest Park Shelter, we met with our consultant. They are wrapping up the scope and specifications, and we're going to have a conference call with our insurance company tomorrow morning, and then hopefully that will wrap that end of things up, and then we will be developing the bid packet to go out for bid for repair. And then the last, or a comp plan, met with our consultant. A draft plan was submitted to staff about 3 hours ago. So internal review is happening, and the intent is to bring you a draft copy in for your October meeting. And then the last one, if I'm not mistaken, the last one is the major project. So I have that sheet on there for you. Periodically, we update you. I think the broad picture of the table that you look at is there's a lot of stuff that has went on. And a lot of stuff that we're still doing. So it's just a snapshot of the larger task projects that we've been taking on over this last year. So
thank you.
There you go. Said it would be quick.
Wow.
So again, if you'd like to join us, the public is welcome to join the city in the groundbreaking at Nelson Family Pavilion at Voyager Park near the current restrooms next week, Friday, September 29th. Program beginning at 10:30 in the morning. All right, at this point, I believe a motion to adjourn is in order. Oh, no, future agenda items. Oh, sorry, future agenda items. Oh, Connor.
Okay, I'll make this quick because I know we all want to kind of get out of here. But so I'm on question 28 of the survey that was in the agenda here, and I just saw that skate parks and BMX tracks were on here. And I see that this is the least frequent picked option out of the how many that are on here. I'd just like to pose the question to anybody who would know this. Out of the 281, it looks like, that answer this question, like, would all of them be adults? Like, around, what are we thinking here?
Oh, well, so the confusing part here is like, are you asking during public comment period, or where are we asking here? But we'll just real quickly, so the question that you're asked, I don't have an answer to. I would have to check with our consultant.
Okay.
So
But that would be a great
that would be
future
the
agenda item. We can ask Marty to come back with
Right.
demographics on that. And then do you have any other things you want to talk about?
I was just gonna make the comment on that I feel that there needs to be a little more teenage kind of I guess amenities going along with the question into Pere Parks and Rec. And I feel like that we have tailored most of that teenage kind of sports to you know, our basic soccer, football, along those lines. And that action sports in skate parks and BMX tracks, that would be a good amenity to have in our Parks and Rec. So I'd just like to propose future discussion on that in a future agenda. And I can, you know, bring up some type of presentation if you guys would like me to on that. But yeah.
So a great agenda topic. One thing that could come up that would parallel your question there, when the comp study comes forward, it has our parks, it has future development ideas, and that would be a topic, potentially a parallel conversation of facilities that would embrace what you're talking about in our parks. So it's possible as part of the comp plan that could be part of the discussion that you had.
Yeah, I hear more the action item about how to engage younger people in the survey too. There's almost two things.
That would be an interesting
yeah.
piece too, seeing what the demographics
Yeah,
are. And yes.
Yeah.
All right. Now I think a motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned at 8:27 p.m.